Thanks, everybody, for being here. We're so excited to have this event for you all. Welcome to Amazon Workers Speak Out, Lessons for How to Win at Work. My name is Eric Blanc. I'll be your MC for the panel tonight, which is co-sponsored by Jacobin Magazine and EWOC, the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, which is a national organizing project that helps any worker in any industry organize their workplace. We're here tonight, as you know, because we've been so incredibly inspired by the heroic efforts of the Amazon Labor Union. And we're extremely lucky to have with us tonight 3 of ALU's core organizers. We've got ALU President Chris Smalls. We've got Chairwoman of the Workers Committee, Angie Maldonado. And we've got member of the organizing committee, Michelle Valentin Nieves. So you can give a big round of applause to them at home. We will assume you're clapping extremely loudly. And they're gonna explain to us how they won and what we can all learn from their experience. But before we dive into that discussion, we have 2 important items on the agenda. The first is that we're very honored to be joined tonight by a special guest, someone who's been fighting for Amazon workers from day one, whether it was in 2018, helping win a $15 minimum wage for all Amazon workers, to in 2020, supporting and lifting up the story of Chris Smalls when he was unjustly fired. Give it up for our organizer-in-chief, the one and only Senator Bernie Sanders. Bernie, the floor is yours.
Well, Eric, thanks very much for the introduction. And let me thank the Amazon Labor Union and Chris and Angelica and Michelle for inviting me to be with you. It truly is an honor. The victory that you won in Staten Island at Amazon has been an inspiration, I think, for millions of people all over this country. What you did, as I think everybody knows, is you took on one of the most powerful corporations in this country, owned by one of the wealthiest people in this country, a corporation that spent millions and millions of dollars trying to prevent a union, and you, with a grassroots effort, a locally organized union with almost no financial resources, hey, you beat Amazon. That is remarkable. And I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, congratulate you for that extraordinary victory. And obviously, all across this country, people are saying, whoa, if these guys at Amazon could take on that company, we can do it as well. You know, as Nelson Mandela said, everything is impossible until it is done. You did it. And as I understand it already, there are Amazon warehouses all over the country that want more information. as to how you did it. And what we're looking at, I think, is a national sweeping movement. I think that what's going on in America today, and you are helping to lead that effort, is that people are sick and tired of corporate greed. I mean, can you imagine? You guys work for a company owned by a man who's worth something like $180 billion. He has spent $500 million on a yacht. He has a mansion with 25 bathrooms, and yet he is continuing to squeeze his workers as hard as he can and to fight the ability of workers to come together for decent wages, decent benefits, decent schedules, decent working conditions. And whether it's Bezos or whether it's the people who own Starbucks or where else things, exploitation is taking place, people are saying enough is enough, you know? We are living in an economy today where it's not just Bezos, but you have all kinds of corporations making huge amounts of profit. You have more income and wealth inequality today than we've had in 100 years. And during the pandemic, people like Bezos and others have become phenomenally richer, while ordinary workers are falling further and further behind. And what I think working people understand, that if they're going to get decent wages and dignity on the job, they need to come together. They need to form a union. They need to be able to sit down and bargain through collective bargaining for what they need. So, you know, I don't know if we are entering a period like the 1930s during the Depression when we saw massive union organizing. You know, at that point, unemployment was really, really high. People were terribly exploited. We're living in a different time right now. But I think that at this moment, what you guys at Amazon have done is really touched a nerve. People are saying enough is enough. Working people in the richest country on earth deserve decent wages, healthcare, schedules, etc. So I look forward to working with you. And I know that I have colleagues in the Congress who feel the same as I do. Our demand now is that Bezos and Amazon sit down and start negotiating a contract. Our demand is that they stop spending millions trying to prevent workers from exercising their constitutional right to form a union. So that's about all that I have to say. I'm just enormously gratified and inspired by what you have done. And I look forward to doing everything I can to see the work that you have done spread all over this country. So once again, congratulations. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Senator Bernie Sanders. We appreciate your efforts, and we are looking forward to diving into the discussion on how you all out there can make that vision a reality. Before we do, this is an organizing call, so we've got organizing asks for you, as you may have expected. What we need each of you to do tonight is two things. The first is we've got a form that we're going to put the link up to right as I speak, which is how you can get involved in the movement. If you're out there and you are thinking, wow, that was amazing what they did at Amazon, look, that could be you. As you'll see, the folks in the ALU, they're just like us. They're working class people and looking to organize, and they did it. And so we would ask all of you to click on this link now. We're actually going to take a minute, so take your time. It's ewok.online/win. This is a forum in which you can sign up to get connected to EWOC organizer, so you can help organize your workplace. You can support others organizing your workplace. And I just want to give you a second, because some of you are probably listening to this and expecting that we'll just move on. But this is an organizing call. I need you to sign up on this link right now. There's 4 options. You can organize your workplace on this link. You can volunteer to support other workplace organizing. You can sign up to get a job at Amazon to help organize, and you can sign up to support Starbucks organizing. And so if on this call tonight, you come away with a clear plan, one of the ways you're going to do that is by signing up on that forum. Don't be a bystander. Now's the time to touch grass, get in the game, make history. So that's the first ask. Make sure you sign up on that link. It's also going to be posted on the webpage and YouTube. So the second ask, which is no less important, is we are here because we need you to support the Amazon Labor Union. And one of the ways you can do that is by financially donating. Click on this link, or you can input it, ewok.online/ALU-fund. That's going to take you to the official ALU GoFundMe. And this is crucial because they're up against one of the most powerful corporations in the world. And we need to show them material solidarity. They've got a huge vote coming up later in this month. They've got a big contract fight, and every donation you can make right now to make their organizing more successful will go a long way. So please sign up on the EWOC forum, donate to ALU. And with no further ado, it is my great honor to open up a discussion with 3 working class heroes who made this victory possible. The first question I have is that, there's a lot of people out there who were so inspired by what you did, but don't necessarily even know how to start. Most of us aren't in unions. And so we want to start with the basics. What is one thing you would tell somebody watching this call who's considering organizing their workplace, who wants to form a union? What's one organizing task that you would see as essential and that you would suggest to them that they start doing? Let's start with Chris and then let you take it from there.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. We had that issue, of course, in the beginning of our campaign. We had to educate a lot of the workers about what a union provides and what a union represents, because they just simply didn't know. It's not no fault to them, since the 1930s, unions have been on the downfall because of the inflation, the productivity, the way laws are in this country. You've seen that unionizing in this country drop to less than 10%. So the fact that you got to educate your coworkers is step number one. And, I don't suggest going online and just going to a simple internet website. You got to actually have a face-to-face conversation with somebody that's in the union to really understand what unions provide and what's the difference between being unionized and I tell the workers here in Staten Island as they get on the bus to simply ask your bus driver. They are in the union, and I guarantee they love their job. They love the benefits. So that same thing that happens to anybody, applies to anybody in the country. Find somebody that's in the union and have a conversation with them. And not just one conversation. It takes several conversations. There's a lot of questions to be answered. And I guarantee when you talk to a union rep or a union member, they can answer those questions for you, or find somebody in the union that can answer the questions for you. And I promise you, at the end, you'll probably make the decision to want to join one.
Angie, Michelle, one of you take it away.
Yeah, I totally agree with Chris. He basically said everything, basically just letting your coworkers know, or whatever organization that you're trying to form within a company, just let everyone know that how much a union is important. Try to find people who have union family, who are in union families. In contrast, explaining exactly what jobs or people in certain careers, how they benefit from unions. And then being able to let them know that, no matter where you work, you deserve to have certain rights that other workers and other companies do. And so that's very important, because a lot of people in some places, they believe that, they're not, they aren't entitled to get a higher pay. They aren't entitled to certain benefits. And that's because the condition in the workplace. And so it's very important that they find an outlet where they can learn and research information about how to get their own union started, and also information to collect to maybe, organize their own union.
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely strength in numbers, definitely an organization, and making sure that you build some kind of a friendship with your coworkers, especially if you're in an establishment for a long term. I think it's really important that everyone gets along and you're all on the same page and you all have the same goals as far as the organization, and definitely strength in numbers. try to recruit as many people as you can, try to talk to as many people as you can, all of the time. If you're on break, if you're in the restroom, if you're outside, drinking coffee, if you're at the bus stop, if, you see someone and you guys are getting out of the car and you're in the, getting out of a parking spot, anywhere, it could be any random place, and just try to just bring more people in, because there is strength in numbers.
So I want to stick with this question, because thanks for all of those responses. And I think, a lot of listeners are probably hearing that and saying, okay, that sounds good, and wanting to know, what exactly does that look like? What did that look like for you all at JFK? When you say bring people together, what were the specific techniques, for instance, you did? Where did you talk to people? How important was the different specific organizing techniques you did? We've read online, people have read online about you used barbecues, you had online, you had TikTok, and there's also a lot of conversation about what happened inside the building, talking with, having conversations, all of these specifics. Can each of you kind of give us a little bit more on the details of the kind of particular organizing techniques? If you had to give one thing that you saw work for you that you would suggest others do, like a really specific organizing technique, take it away. Just let us know, any of you, what did you see work for you that might be replicable for others?
I always said it from the beginning, food is the way to the heart. As simple as that. You want to bring people together, you feed them. It's like any Thanksgiving meal. We made Thanksgiving several times throughout the year, not just on Thanksgiving. We had potlucks, we had barbecues, we had bonfires, as you mentioned. We rejoiced over food, and it wasn't really a rejoicing. It was just more of conversations. Once again, it hadn't always had to deal with just unionizing. We just made a space for workers to feel comfortable, and once you got workers feeling comfortable, you have their attention, and now they look forward to seeing you every day. They're like, oh man, where's the bonfire at? Oh man, where's the ALU at if we're not there? So when you start to get that type of feedback, you know that you're doing something correct. And that's why we fed our coworkers as much as possible, and we still continue to do so, because we know food is the way to the heart, and Amazon obviously lacks that. They're the Grinch who stole Christmas, and we're the good guys.
Yeah,
Angie, Michelle, go for it.
Yeah, definitely the food. And so before I joined, when I joined in October, basically the ALU team, they already had like tons of barbecues. They were giving out pizza. I remember the day I joined, I sat by the tent and I had a slice of pumpkin pie and some snacks, right? And so I think that food is definitely the way to the heart. And then also being considerate of the different cultures that were in Amazon. And so targeting, different ethnicities and nationalities, and actually taking into consideration that we all came from different places. So, at one point we were serving African fried rice. At one point, one of our team members, Kaz, he had got empanadas from a Spanish restaurant. And I think that us, having these different ideas that targeted different cultures, whether we were a part of that culture or not, it definitely let the workers know that we were thinking of them in more ways than one. And then also when we had these potlucks and stuff, music too, so we made it enjoyable and we made it fun, while getting the information out about what the ALU, how the ALU wanted to benefit us as the employees of Amazon.
Michelle, do you have any non-food related? We got the food
non-food related. Definitely, I think organizing for me was fun. I enjoyed it very much. What I did is I tried to single out people that no one else is really speaking to. Like, let's say someone that's really, really quiet, and you see them and they don't speak to anyone. Single out that one person. Also people that have disabilities. There's people that are in wheelchairs. There's people that have they're can't see very well. There's all type of people. There's people that are deaf or they're mute. And I would try to talk to those people also, because sometimes those people are kind of ignored, especially by management. And that's a problem that's inside of Amazon, and that there's a huge disconnection between management and the workers. And that's a complaint across the board with every single worker. It's like there's this huge disconnection where you feel like you're not even in the same building, with your managers. Like there's no conversation, there's no good morning, how are you feeling today? I mean, none of that. So there's really like no sense of like a work culture inside of the building. So it's like you have to create your own work culture. And then for me, it was a little bit easier, and it was fun because I've already been at that facility for 3 years. So I pretty much already knew a bunch of people, and I was like a familiar face, because you would see me either, coming in the building or out of the building, or you see me in the break room, you see me, upstairs, downstairs, in the elevator. So you're like, okay, this is a familiar face. I've seen this woman, many a times, and she's with the AOU, and she's a familiar face. She's been here for a while. So they would feel, for the most part, they would feel comfortable speaking to me when I would go up to people and, try to speak to them about the union, and try to see, what, if they're for the union, if they're against it. Let's have a discussion. Not try to be like too forceful, like, okay, you have to vote yes, 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 yes. Like you have to say yes, like, because that's what management was doing. They were telling everyone to vote no. And I didn't want to come off with that same kind of energy. Like I wanted to just be like, okay, let's discuss it. Let's, if you're with it, if you're not, let's discuss it and why, and what can we do to try to persuade you.
That's really helpful. I have a follow-up question. Where did you have those conversations? Because
Everywhere.
yeah, can you just describe that? Because it seems like it might be scary having that inside the fulfillment center or the warehouse. Can you just talk through, were people scared about talking? How did you break through that fear factor?
People were definitely scared about talking, but again, like we have our own separate work culture from management, because like I said, there's that disconnection there. So there's a lot going on as far as people that have been, I'm speaking of people that have been there for the long term, like people that have been with Amazon over a year, because the thing is that Amazon creates this environment where they don't expect you to last over a year. If you make it over a year as a level 1 associate, it's like a miracle has happened, because they really don't expect you to last that long. So they're like, yeah, I give this person maybe a year and a half tops, and they're out of here. So when you're there for like 2 or 3 years, and somehow you find some way to flourish in this kind of an environment, the managers really don't realize it, because again, there's this disconnection. So we would speak everywhere. I'm like in the staircase, going up and down the stairs, and in the elevator, in the parking lot, in front of the building, on the bus, at St. George, at the St. George ferry terminal, because I take the bus to St. George and then I get on the Staten Island Railroad. Or there would be some people that I actually saw in random places in Staten Island. Like I would see people at Costco's, on Forest Avenue, like outside of the facility. And it just like the conversation just happened anywhere at any time, pretty much.
Thanks. That was all really helpful to you all. Appreciate that. So we'll move on. Touching on one of the pieces you mentioned earlier, Amazon, like most workplaces these days, there's a lot of divisions, right? People are fractured along a whole different range of lines. So I was hoping you could all talk about that and give some details about what were the divisions you saw? How did you work to overcome them? And could you describe a specific conversation about maybe somebody who you had to work on a while to try to get them to come over, that maybe they were opposed or really hesitant, and what it took to move them? Yeah, so that's the question. Anyone want to start us off?
Yeah, I could.
Chris, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Well, Amazon tried to make this a racial thing in the beginning. They had one of their union busters, Brad Moss, who came from Alabama, He was one of the first ones to be exposed because he talked to a group of workers, predominantly white, and one Hispanic woman in there in the group. And he said some racial remarks about the ALU. He called us a bunch of thugs. He called us a bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters with no experience. And, he tried to make it a racial thing. He said that, he came from Alabama and the union wasn't no big deal. And once again, that we're a bunch of thugs outside the building. And they Amazon ran with that. They don't stop the rumors once they start. I can guarantee that there's nobody in there saying, "Oh no, that's not true." Once the rumors start to spread, it's like high school. They get to everybody. It's word of mouth. It's real fast. And we noticed that they tried to paint us out as, once again, just people that just had no experience, that just came off the streets, that's trying to steal everybody's money with union dues. Even to the point where they even told everybody that I'm going to buy a Lamborghini. That was the latest one. They even made a sign with an ALU car decal on the sign with somebody driving this convertible, which I guess was supposed to be me. And they also, Michelle and Angie can speak on this as well. They had signs in there with that were very racist. They had union busting signs that had people wearing their hat backwards, wear a darker color than the other cartoons that they use, and it was just very racist what they were trying to do, and still continue to do as well because the union busting hasn't stopped.
Angie, Michelle, do you want to add on that piece?
Yeah, I mean, well, basically, one of the ways that we, try to bring everyone together, although it wasn't really an easy task, just create our own culture within the ALU. And, everyone thinks like we have like these tactics that are worth thousands of dollars, but basically we're just being ourselves. And so, connecting with the workers, there was times where, we would sit outside by the bus stop and play loud music. We would connect with the young workers that way. Or I even remember one time, an older woman inside the building, I call her mom now. I brought her tea, we sat down and talked. And so just connecting with the workers any way we would treat our own family. We would treat our grandmother, we would treat our uncle, we would treat our brother and our sister and our mom. That's the way we kind of got through that age gap thing. Even with different cultures, having organizers that spoke different languages, even if it was one organizer, it could, because in theory, there weren't hundreds of us. There were only like about 15 towards the end. And so it was a very tedious, organizing ideal. However, what the ALU did and how we created our own culture, it worked for us, and it worked for us in a way where if you didn't hear about the ALU, you still seen who we were. And so when we approached you, you knew that we weren't like, a third party at this point. At this point, you knew that the captive audience meetings were just lies. And at this point, you knew that whatever we were telling you, it wasn't information that wasn't true. If anyone was to give out misinformation, it was Amazon. And so, just building our own culture. And that's how I seen it. Yeah.
Angie, can I ask a follow-up question on the youth piece? It seems like a lot of ALU core organizers are pretty young. And so I was just wondering if that's true, if you have a sense of why that is, and then how were you able to connect to older workers? Because that could both be a strength and maybe a limitation, right? If people see it as just like a young crew of workers. How did you deal with the age issue?
Well, I would say the reason that, the average age of a ALU member is 27 years old. However, we have people that are 50 years old, maybe a little bit older, and then we have people that are probably like 20 years old, right? But I think the reason for that is there was a lot of people who, they wanted to get involved with the ALU, but because Amazon, the pay is not as well as they make it seem. A lot of the older people, they do have second jobs to provide for their family. So, if that, it was only so much that they can do. Sometimes they come in the break room and they would help us talk to our coworkers, but as far as coming on their off days and dedicating the time that we were dedicating, it was very difficult for them. I've spoken to many of my coworkers who are like, I really want to organize, but I have a second job. I don't have anyone to babysit my child. I have to take care of my grandmother. And so, and in theory, another thing is that if these people need to maintain their second jobs, we still have to fight so that maybe one day they wouldn't need a second job as much as they do now.
Thanks. Michelle, can you add in on divisions, whether it's the racism that you were subjected to or youth or any of these things? What's your take on divisions, how you overcome them?
As far as the active or the captive union busting classes, they were so racist that it was like out of this world, because they even had like the figures that they would have, like let's say they would have like a manager was like a bright yellow and orange figure, and then the AOU representative would be like a dark purple with a dark blue figure. And I saw that like on the screen and I was like really shocked by it. And you have to understand that what happened is that actually completely backfired on Amazon, because it's like you're showing us these racist images, but the majority of your workers there are like the majority are like 70 to 80% African American. Am I correct, Angie and Chris?
Yeah, I mean it's
Like
35,
80%.
30% of Hispanic, 35% Black. So altogether we're
Right.
talking majority Black and brown workers.
Exactly. So when you show something racist like that to people of color, because even myself, like when people see me, they just see like a very fair-skinned woman, but I do identify as a woman of color first and foremost. And I do have people in my family, like my brother, my cousins, my uncles, that look like Chris and Angie. And they don't look like me, as far as complexion is concerned, but that doesn't mean that I don't identify as a person of color. So like it's weird because they would look at me and like kind of have like this weird look on their face, and it's just like you don't get it. Like, do you not understand that this is racist? Do you not understand that this is like morally wrong? Like it was just so many things going on, to the point where I got like thrown out of a few of the classes because I was just, the anger would just come out, and it would just be like, this is just like really disgusting, and I'm just like, I don't even know what to say about how racist it is. As far as the environment in Amazon itself, it's very, very diverse. I mean, it's very divided as far as race. And it's just like, as far as the captive audience meeting classes, it was just like really horrendous, I have to say.
Yeah, well, thank you for persevering despite that. I want to do a follow-up on this, which is, okay, so you're confronted with these divisions, and I imagine that each one of you had a lot of conversations. That's one of the things that came up in having some conversations with you and doing interviews, is just like, it sounded like you were talking to people all of the time, right? And so I was wondering, could each of you just describe, again, a conversation where you were able to move somebody who, who took a while, right? Who was a hard nut to crack, if you want to put it that way. Could each of you give us a sense of like, what did it take to move some of these hard to move people? And I'm sure that was difficult. Maybe Chris, could you start us off again? Because obviously, again, Amazon tried to demonize you, as you just explained. And so I'm interested, what did those conversations look like when you're going up to people? How did you break through folks who might have been skeptical or hesitant? And then each of you could touch on this afterwards. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I definitely I had to flip a couple people because they just hear through the grapevine all these things about me without even speaking to me. And I think after every conversation they have with me, they walk away saying, whatever they hear is just not true. I'm a nice guy, respectable. I respect you. I'm calm. Everybody know I'm always pretty much calm, unless we're partying or having fun. And that's what I wanted to show people, that I'm a real human being, just like nobody else. I'm no different. I'm an Amazon worker, just like yourself. I was a picker. I got hired as a picker. Yes, I was a process assistant, was more on the management side for several years, but at the same time, I never forgot where I came from, and that's what I used to, people that work underneath me, that organize with us, that is, definitely been around with me since day one, like Derek Palmer, can speak on how I was as a supervisor in the building. I was the same way. I'm the same way now. I respect everybody, no matter, what position you are, what level you are. And I think that also helped, debunked a lot of the things that they heard about me, and also about the union itself. They tried to, you know, once again tie me as a human being to the union and how the union is going to be formed. And they don't realize that every decision that we make is a democratic decision. I don't never make a decision without consulting with the team and voting on it, whatever decision, as far as the budget, as far as food, as far as, doing demonstrations or rally. We have several meetings every single week where we discuss these things and how we want to organize. And, for me, I like to be, having workers come and challenge me and ask me tough questions, because that made me stronger as a leader and as an organizer. I definitely told people, they're going to go through this honeymoon phase. When you get hired by Amazon, you're excited. It's a big name company. You see all the commercials, how the job looks great, the benefits, and you get on day one. It's always paying better than its competitors. But then you go through a honeymoon phase where, 2 weeks in, it could be 2 weeks, 2 months, even 2 years. You realize that something needs to be done, because this is not what you expected. Whether it's management getting on you, whether it's management not getting on you or not even having conversations with you, getting overlooked for promotions, being on station 10 to 12 hours, not being able to cross train, being cross trained too much, when they use and abuse you and throw you anywhere because it's business needs. All of these things come to a wall, and you hit that wall when you're like, you know what, enough is enough. And sometimes we will have people walk past us for 2 or 3 months. Angie was probably one of them. It took her a while to just finally say, you know what, let me go have a conversation. And not just her, it was a lot of workers who were like that. 2 or 3 months, they wouldn't even take a flyer, they wouldn't take a pamphlet, they wouldn't say hi. But then that one day that they realize that management is not on their side, they come right out and sign up. And that's all I waited for as well.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, why don't we go to you, Angie? It's a good question, actually, because you got involved in October, I believe, of last year, right? So could you describe two things then? This is a double question. Can you describe how you got won over? Like, how did that conversation go? Because you had been working and you didn't get immediately involved. So kind of what switched for you in that conversation? And then can you describe like a specific conversation you had with somebody who maybe you were really proud of having moved them, like they'd been hesitant? Because I remember when I discussed with you for an interview, you said that you have a good memory and you would always try to speak to people you've never spoken with before. So I imagine you moved a lot of folks. So could you tell us about how you got moved, and then maybe how you moved somebody else?
I got moved one day. I remember vividly leaving work early because I was exhausted. And the VP, Connor Spence, he had came up to me, and I had just missed the bus. And every time I miss the bus, I always think about how when I first started in 2018, Amazon promised us shuttles. And so I had missed the bus, and Connor came up to me, and he gave me the whole, the whole thing about the ALU. and what was going on at the time. And at the time when I first signed up, we were doing signatures. The ALU were doing signatures, and he's like, we're about to turn in our signatures. You're going to be one of the last batch of signatures. Help us make history. And I'm like, you know what? I just missed the bus. And if Amazon had a shuttle, I would have been probably home by now. So yeah, I'll sign it. And yeah, that's basically how I got involved. As far as flipping people, oh man. Certain days and certain people, the experience is different. And so like there would be some people I'll probably have like a 30-minute convo with in the break room, and they're like, oh well, everything sounds great, like this is what I'm looking for in the union, I'll think about it. I'm like, I'm here anytime you need me, I'm always here. And they're like, okay. And then I'll see them the next day or maybe a week later or both times, and I'll try to give them a new piece of literature and update them. And they'll be like, girl, keep that paper. I'm voting yes. And so like, sometimes you don't know because, everyone doesn't express their emotions the same way. So you're thinking maybe that person is, they're not as convinced as you would want them to be, or they still have concerns, but they just don't, they're just not hooray about it like I am. So, and then there's also been times where I remember this one time I was speaking to a guy about my age. I believe he was 28, and he was telling me how he was in the military, and he believes that a lot of the workers don't work as hard as him, and that we shouldn't get a raise because that would mean that everyone would get a raise, and he felt like he should only get a raise because he worked there for like 4 years. And so, I explained to him about, how everyone's role is different and how we're not only fighting for tier 1 employees, but we're fighting for tier 3 employees. And, he's like, I'm not really voting for the union. I'm like, okay, well, I'm right here whenever you need to speak to me. And so, like 2 weeks later, we're outside giving out lanyards and stuff. And he comes up with one of the organizers named Cassio. And he's like, guess what? The guy who I spoke to, he's like, guess what? I'm voting yes. And I'm like, no way. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you softened me up a bit, but then I spoke to Cassio and I'm all in now. And I'm like, and that's the power in numbers, and that's the power in the different personalities in the ALU. And so like that moment right there, like a week before the election, that really made me proud of myself, and it made me proud of, the organizers that we have.
That's amazing. Did you all find that some people required multiple conversations? Michelle, can you maybe talk about that, or talk about any people?
Yes. Well, when I first got involved, I was actually in a heated argument with one of the managers, because that's pretty much like the story of my life in Amazon. So I had to like over the years transfer numerous times, because once you get into it with one of the managers, especially if that's the area manager, they're just find a way to try to either make your life hell or get rid of you. So I was like in a heated argument with a manager, and Derek, the vice president, came and spoke to me about it. He's like, hey, what's going on? I saw you arguing with this manager and all this stuff, because I was like, screaming at the top of my lungs. And he was like, what's going on and all this other stuff. And I was like, the usual BS with, management and this, that, and the third. And he gave me the card, and I like signed like the battle, like immediately. It wasn't even like, I didn't even like think about it. It was just like I did it like instantly. And it was like I was waiting for something like that to happen, because there was times like before everything happened that I was just like, when are things going to change inside of this building? Like, show me a sign that the madness is like going to come to an end. And that was pretty much like, that's how I got involved. And then as far as like flipping other people, there's people that it took me weeks upon weeks of trying to talk to this person constantly, over and over and over again. the thing that did work in my favor is that I am 45, so I'm a little bit older than some of the other AOU organizers. So in that sense, they were like, okay, well, she's not 25. She doesn't look like she just got out of high school. Not that you guys look like you just got out of high school, but to a person that's a little bit older, it's like they don't want to take advice from someone that's like 25, especially if you're 35, 45, 55, whatever. They're gonna be like, okay, what do you know about life? You still probably live in your parents' basement. You're like, what are you gonna tell me if I'm 20, 25 years older than you? What can you tell me that I don't already know? Unfortunately, that can be the case. So I think me being already in my 40s worked in my favor, just for me personally, because I was a little bit older. We're like, okay, well, she's got to know something because I mean, she's not 25. So unfortunately, I mean, that's the way people think. So that's how it definitely worked for me, that I was already like in my 40s, and I did get to flip a lot of people. It's like a wonderful feeling once they tell you that they're like, yes, I'm gonna vote yes. And when you find out, it's like the most amazing feeling in the world. It was just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And I'm like, wow, like this is all like really worth it.
Michelle, that's great. And we will give props to our 26 and 25-year-old organizers, of whom there are many in ALU.
Yes.
So including, so Angie, actually, I'm going to jump back to you real quick because that goes to one of the questions I was hoping maybe you could just touch on. Didn't you, I think you mentioned to me once that you would bring up that you're a mother, and that went a long ways towards having conversations. Could you bring up why you thought that was important for kind of bringing that personal touch and your personal experience when you're having those conversations?
Yeah, and I think it played a big part, especially because what Michelle just said. A lot of people, in my opinion, they looked at me and they're like, are you just doing this for fun, or like, and so I used that time to be vulnerable with the coworkers and let them know that I was a single mother of a 4-year-old child. I have a son. I work 12-hour and 30-minute shifts, 3 days consecutive. And on my off days, I'm here every day. And so I would say about 90% of the time, that's when people would really listen to me, because it's not like they were walking away, but I don't think their ear was to the conversation. And so like when I would just tell them like, listen, I'm a 27-year-old single mother. Like, I'm not doing this for fun. I'm not here hanging out in the break room for fun, for laughs and giggles. Like, I'm literally here to make a better workplace for my coworkers, and I'm literally sacrificing time away from my child every day
Mm-hmm.
to bring a better work environment to my coworkers. And all I want you to do is take this piece of literature, and if you have any questions, I'm here. And once I asserted myself that way and was vulnerable at the same time, most of the time I usually seen those people usually always came back. And if they didn't come back, those were the people that were judging me.
Chris, I want to do a follow up with you too, because it just struck me talking to you. You're literally here from day one. Almost by definition. You famously helped start this whole thing. So you must have seen this really amazing transformation at JFK, right? From 2 years ago to a year ago. So can you describe how you've seen that general shift? And then I do want to hear it from you, like if you give a specific conversation of somebody you flipped, because I'm sure you've flipped a lot of different folks because you were here that so much of that time. So can you give an overview of how you've seen the workforce change, and then just tell us a story about one person you flipped.
Well, yeah, this is still surreal for me. I can't believe 2 years to the day, the exact day that JFK made history on March 30th. Pretty much, even though the results came out April 1st, the voting ended on March 30th, which was 2 years to the day I was fired. So to see over 5,000 people vote in person, to go in and out the tent to sign off on the sealed ballots, to witness the ballot count live in person at the NLRB office. I can't put that into words. That experience for me is something that I will never forget for the rest of my life. And I said it with my team, you know, win, lose, or draw, you know, we already made history. And I want to let everybody know I never had a doubt in my mind that we was going to lose. I tell people that all the time. We were going to win. Even the last observers that I had in the tent, the last signature that I signed on the sealed ballot was AOU for the win. You know, I want them to know that we know and we believe that we're going to win this election. So speaking it into existence, and what I've seen for the last 11 months, um, it's just pure, like, I don't know. It's something you have to see in the movies. It's just something that's not on social media. You can't even put in the words that the craziest things that you can think of happen to us out there. Y'all saw us get arrested once or twice, um, but the cops were called on us several times, maybe 10 times since the beginning. Fire department was called on us a few times. We got caught up in crazy storms. Staten Island it's unpredictable with weather. I don't care what y'all tell me. Staten Island has its own weather forecast because I've been out there and we lost like 9 tenths in a gust of wind. So it was just so many things that we had to overcome every day. Unfortunately, I have to wait to see the documentary for that. But I can tell you, the most. I didn't flip just one person. I flipped a lot. Probably hundreds, if not several hundred. I wrote a letter a few days before the voting closed that was opened over 5,000 times. That was one of our most open emails that we put out there. We put out emails every week. They were average about 1,500 to 2,000 clicks from workers. But the letter I put out was open probably 5,000 to 6,000 times. And workers even put on the VOA board. They text us. Some of the organizers, they hit me up in my DMs, social media, saying that letter was the reason why they voted yes. And that was the purpose of it, to tell my story, to let people know who I am as a person, how it happened from the beginning to the end, how we got to this point. And I think it also worked in our favor to get us a victory.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's really remarkable what you did. And I just will add one thing that Angie mentioned earlier to me, which is amazing, and maybe other union presidents can do something similar. Angie, you told me once that if you would have the conversation with somebody, and if you didn't have the answer to them, you would literally just give them Chris's number. Is this right?
Yeah.
And so, Chris, what did that look like? Were you just getting called all the time? Like, I'm just trying to imagine. This is a novel organizing tactic where you literally just have the call. You can call the president.
She's not the only one.
What was that like?
Right, and so like I learned that method from someone else, but the crazy part is that like we didn't take it upon ourselves. Chris literally gave the okay, so that's why I say like what Amazon says about him is like completely untrue, because there's so many things that he's given the okay for that I'm pretty sure other people probably wouldn't have had time for.
Right. And trust me, she wasn't the only one who did that. I would get calls, and I still get calls from workers, and it's fine. I want to be able to talk to them as much as possible. I know that it was important that they hear, from me, because they're hearing from the company that I'm going to take the dues, and they don't want it to be a meal ticket for me, and I don't want it to come across like that. I want to explain that these dues are going into your own personal bank accounts. You know why? Because you guys are the union. You're paying union dues to yourselves. We have a treasurer that oversees that. There will be regulations on how the budget and how money is spent, and you will have a seat at the table every step of the way, full transparency on everything, and that helped put workers at ease.
So I have a follow-up question for any of you. Just hearing these stories, what comes across to me is, it sounds like you did a lot of the really kind of classic, basic organizing tactics for organizing a workplace that a lot of unions do, sometimes successfully, sometimes not successfully. Talking to workers, flipping people, giving out shirts and lanyards, things like that to track how you're doing. My impression, and I don't know if this is true or not, is that one of the things that was like your secret sauce was just how dedicated your organizers were, and most of you are working at the same time. I'm genuinely interested to know, how did you build that level of commitment amongst yourselves, right? Because Angie, you're saying there's like 15 of you and you moved,
Yeah.
a massive warehouse of up to 8,000 work. How did you build that kind of level of buy-in for folks to be able to make those types of sacrifices to move your coworkers? Can any of you give a sense of
Well,
like how you did that?
I'm gonna go first on that one. With that, I think that Amazon pretty much helps because, like we have something that's called peak season, and if you've ever gone through an Amazon peak season, then you know what I mean. Like you have to work, I think it's like 12 hours, 5 to 6 times a week. So you're working almost 60 hours for like a little over a month. It is a little over a month, right, guys?
Yeah.
Peak
Yeah.
season. So pretty much if you go through that, you can pretty much go through anything. And then there's people in there that have been through numerous peak seasons. They've been through like 3, 4 peak seasons. So once you go through that, you go through your first peak season, that's how but that basically like breaks the ice because it's like that's where I feel that Amazon underestimated us, and they underestimated, our commitment and our intelligence and our way to thrive in a hostile work environment or just a hostile environment. And then with me personally, like my daughter's already 19 going on 20, and she's like, she's about to go to college and all that. So me personally, I had a lot of support from my husband. I mean, if it wasn't for my husband, I don't know if I would have been able to, commit myself the way that I did, because he was like literally dropping me off, and he was just like very supportive when I came home. He was extremely supportive, so I had like that support when I came home. So for me personally, that's how I was able to do it. And on top of that, just going through peak a few times.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would relate, Michelle, with that. As far as like support from my own family, if it wasn't for my mom and my little brother who works at LDJ5, it would have been impossible for me to organize and dedicate the hours the way I did. As far as dedication, I got my dedication from the organizers that I work with today. And so when I first started volunteering at the tent, helping to get signatures, speaking to the coworkers about, the things that I was learning, I also started learning the stories of the organizers and people like my partner in crime, Brett Daniels, who moves all the way from Arizona to support Chris in the ALU. People like,
Yeah, Brad.
Connor, who moved from like the other side of New Jersey. Cassio, who moved all the way from LA and left his whole life behind. I felt like it would have been me doing a disservice to have anyone pick up my slack because I knew the support I had. And so I dedicated myself every day in every which way. And I think that's what really inspired me to commit.
Chris, give us your sense of it.
Well, I was the glue. They know where to find me at. You call me every day. There was no question. I was at the bus stop, and I knew I had to do that. I took time away from my kids. I brought my kids out there. I had to bribe them to get SIGs. My kids came out there and got some SIGs for us. So there was some times where I had to bring them. And there's some. I definitely lost a lot of time away from them in the last 2 years, which I'm unfortunate, but fortunately, my kids are very, very smart for their age. They are obviously born with an iPad in their hand. They're 9 years old, so they see a lot of me on YouTube, which is fine. They love bragging about me now in their schools, and I'm just happy that I'm making them proud. And it gives me the motivation to continue going because I don't want my children, I don't want Angie's son, I don't want Michelle's daughter to go through what we're going through. We're fighting for them. We're fighting so that they grow up in a society where they're not subjected to the exploitation of big corporations like Amazon. So, you know, the time away from our children, our families is well worth it, because we're making history and we're changing history so that they don't go through this. And I know what we all sacrificed to do it. And, you know, once again, I'm just grateful to be, you know, a part of this movement and sharing this experience, because the world's watching us now. And, you know, no weapon, no, my mom tells me this all the time, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. So we just going to continue to fight. We're going to win this next election. I'm speaking it into existence. Y'all know how I am. We're going to win the second one. We're going to pop 2 champagne bottles instead of 1. And, you know, then y'all going to witness this revolution. We want to take it nationwide. We've been contacted by pretty much every building in America right now, and then some, even overseas, other countries. So the ALU is, this is day 1 for the ALU. And I'm just happy that I'm here with my comrades. I couldn't have done it without them.
Thanks, Chris. They must be so proud of you. Let's close it out with one last question. We'll start with Michelle or Angie. Just for anybody who's out there who've heard your story and it sounds inspiring, but maybe not something that they could do at their workplace. You know, this is a call tonight to really inspire people to start organizing where they're at, or get a job at Starbucks or Amazon if they can do that too. But all of that sounds very intimidating, right? People are scared of their managers. People will say, well, maybe that could happen there, but it can't happen here, right? But hearing from you, it sounds like probably most workers felt that way at JFK 8 before you started organizing. So for each of you, could you just, if you could give a message right now to someone, and there's a lot of people out there watching right now who's hesitant to get involved in workplace organizing, what would you tell them? What kind of encouragement could you give to them right now about, you know, give them a little pep talk or give them some advice for what you'd suggest they do? Angie, Michelle, either of you start us off.
A real quick pep talk. Just be fearless, and along with that fear, learn from each other and learn your rights. And so even if you do have fear, once you learn your rights, once you learn the laws that protect organizers, that protect, you know, labor in general, you would know that you would know what you deserve, what you can fight for, and how you're protected. And so I'm pretty sure a lot of the coworkers, even signing the card, even voting yes, they did have those concerns. And so we always reassured them that, you know, we were protected by laws, your vote is anonymous, and just even as an organizer, learn your rights. And, you know, that'll eliminate a lot of the fear, and it'll take you a long way.
Michelle?
Yeah, again, I'm gonna say there's strength in numbers. And as far as the workplace is concerned, I think that building friendships is really, really important. Speaking to each other and definitely listening to see, you know, what the problems are, and you could even talk about it outside of work. Um, you know, going to workshops, going to things like that, just doing things together just so that you can grow like some type of a bond. So that way, you know, whenever you guys do decide that you do want to organize and want to make some type of changes, at least you know that there's strength in numbers, and you have, you know, a group of people already that you've already created a friendship with and a bond. Because the friendship with your coworkers matters. It matters to have a positive work culture, because, you know, the majority of people are working full time, and, you know, a lot of people are spending more time at work than they are at home. So, you know, building those friendships, it's really, really important, so that you just have, you know, support from one another. And then eventually when the time comes that you do feel that you want to organize, at least you have that bond and you have that, you know, friendship to fall back on.
Thanks, Michelle. Chris, you gotta close us out with a pep talk to the working class of the United States and the world. There's a lot of people calling in and watching from elsewhere. You know, hype us up on why we should organize our workplace, and what would you tell them if they feel like it can't be done where they work?
Wow, the world is watching. No pressure, right? Well, number one, if you quit your job, you jump from one fire into the next fire, and nothing gets changed. And what you witnessed with the ALU is that we said enough is enough. We're not going to just quit our jobs. We're not going to stand for um, Amazon's anti-propaganda. We're not going to fall victim to failing our coworkers. We're going to stay resilient. We're going to stay grounded. We're going to stay together. And we had our days. We had our moments. We had our setbacks. I don't consider them losses. I don't think we took any losses. I'm not claiming no losses. I'm a sore loser. But we had our days where we'll go out there and sign up nobody, maybe one person to sign a card. And then we had our moments when we'll go out there and sign up 200 people in one day. And that right there showed me and told me that what we got going is working. It doesn't matter what day it happened on, doesn't matter how long. We knew that every day was, for example, what Amazon says, one of their principles, every day is day one. And that's how we approach organizing every single day. We knew that no matter what, the next day is going to be completely different. And our consistency, our resiliency, our dedication, our sacrifice, it all was worth it because we were out there every single day, seeing people, talking to people, earning their trust, building relationships, just showing people better than talking about it too. Once again, people walk past us every day for several weeks or months without even talking to us, but at least they saw us. When other people said, well, Chris, you wasn't out there. I had other workers arguing for me, like, no, he was here every day. I seen him. So just showing up. It's the little things that matter. Doing things that your employer can't do. You heard rumors about us giving out marijuana. You heard rumors about us giving out free books, free food. Just doing things that the employers won't ever do. That also plays a big factor. Paying for somebody's Uber ride to the hospital or to their house because they're too tired to take the bus. Paying a worker's cable bill. That's why we had to use money for the GoFundMe as well. We're helping workers out. Whether it's a cable bill, a phone bill, whether it's COVID relief because Amazon didn't pay their full wage. They only pay 60%. How can people sustain their livelihood with not getting a full check? So we tried to help out, making GoFundMes for people that need housing or people that just got fired. The union did all of these things. And to become a union, that's all it takes is people coming together. Who makes unions in 2022? I know it's different, but anybody in America, anybody in the world can do it. Y'all just witnessed it. Y'all can do it in your workplace, no matter what industry you're in. And, you need our support and our advice. We're here. We're very accessible. I had the same number for 10 years, and I encourage people to reach out, DM us. We're going to get to everybody. I know there's a lot of people reaching out and we haven't responded yet, but that's only because we're swamped and we're trying to, navigate through this moment. But we will have a national call where we will address everybody, especially Amazon workers who want to unionize and beyond. So just stay tuned, stay connected. And get into the revolution because the time is now. I think we saw that when the pandemic started, that everything was under a microscope. That's why I look at 2020 with 2020 vision to the issues that's wrong with this country. And now is the time to fix them. And we're witnessing the revolution. Power to all people.
Well, I want to thank on behalf of all of the people out here, Chris, Michelle, Angie, you all are amazing, just truly an inspiration. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of victories and struggles that have been inspired directly from you. So I just want to thank you all again. And to all of you who are watching out there, if you felt moved, right? I felt moved. That if you felt moved and you were like, well, maybe it could happen here too. Yes, the message of this call tonight is it can happen where you're at. And you need to get organized to do that. You can't organize by yourself. You heard it from the folks here tonight themselves. Kale, if you could just pull up these last two screens, we're going to raise these asks again. If you want to get involved, we can help you organize at your workplace. EWOC will help you do that. We will connect you, get involved at Amazon if you'd like to get involved at Amazon, whether it's at Starbucks. Click on that form, ewok.online/win. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, no less important, ALU is going up against the most cartoonishly evil, powerful people around. And we should not underestimate the amount of struggle that lies ahead. It is not going to be easy. There will be setbacks. Maybe there will be losses, but there will be setbacks. But there's going to be less of that. And the ALU folks you heard on this call tonight are going to be more successful. If you click on that link, ewok.online/ALU-fund, that's going to take you directly to the official ALU GoFundMe. And you tonight, if you're inspired, make a donation to them so that over the coming weeks, as they have this fight at LDJ5 Staten Island, as they win their fight to win their first contract, and as they fight to expand ALU to organize Amazon warehouses across the country, you can make a financial contribution to make that happen. So with no further ado, give one last round of applause for our amazing guests. Give it up for Bernie, who supported earlier. Give it up to Jacobin Magazine for hosting and for putting out some pretty awesome coverage of this, I would say, from day one. There's been a lot of good support. And to all of you for being out there and continuing the fight. And to EWOC, I almost forgot EWOC, we'll give props to ourselves as well for organizing that. So that is it, folks. Go out, organize. We have a world to win. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Angie. Thanks, Michelle.